This is Secular Founding Period History. Welcome to History Talk. My name is Tony Messina, and today's video is going to be about inalienable rights versus privileges granted. I'm going to show you what these words are talking about in the Danbury letter right now. Historical background. Understanding the very details of the subject of church and state requires a look into the contrasting social arrangements between only two states, the states of Virginia and Connecticut. This is because these two states offer us a good contrasting representation of the bipolar opposites that once existed in the early formation of the country on the subject of church and state. On the one hand, we have the state of Virginia, wherein the church and the state were separated, and the citizens of Virginia, for the first time in the history of mankind, enjoyed the voluntary and inalienable right to the free exercise of religion, which was officially adopted with Virginia's 1776 Constitution, and then finally defined with verbal clarity in the 1786 Virginia Bill of Religious Liberty. While on the other hand, the state of Connecticut maintained its colonial charter long after the founding period, which kept in place their social arrangement of an association between church and state. As Connecticut refused to adopt a new constitution, the problems with the existing association between church and state brought with it various issues, as the Connecticut colonial charter was not designed to separate the church from the state. Rather, it integrated the church with the state, with the resulting situation being that religion was, as the Danburys explain, the first object of legislation, placing the whole subject of church and state on a much different ground in Connecticut than what we have in Virginia. In Virginia, religion was not an object of the legislature. Okay, here you see the letter that the Danbury Association sent to Thomas Jefferson. In it, in the very first half of it here, there's a body of language that we're going to look at in great detail for some clarity on exactly what was going on with church and state in Connecticut. And that will be with the language that you see here in red. We're going to take this language and isolate it and examine it in three different sections. And now here you see that passage has been isolated, and we've got it up here for you to see quite clearly, the words. And now we're going to break this into three parts and talk about it. And here we have the first part, which reads, "But sir, our Constitution of Government is not specific. Our ancient charter, together with the laws made coincident therewith, were adopted on the basis of our government at the time of our Revolution, and such had been our laws and usages, and such still are." Okay, but sir, our Constitution of Government is not specific. Well, that's because it's an ancient charter that was written over 100 years previously. It was written in about 1633 or 34. We're in 1803 now, almost 200 years later. They go on to say our ancient charter, together with the laws made coincident therewith, is to say all the laws that were made on that ancient charter were adopted on the basis of our government at the time of our Revolution. So in other words, everything that they had done in their colonial period, lawmaking, government framing, and such, all of that had developed over the colonial period, and at the time of their revolution, they adopted that as their form of government. And it says, and such had been our laws and usages. That's what we were living by, and such still are. So what they're saying here is that for the whole period between 1633 and 1803, nothing changed in Connecticut. They have the same Stone Age document they live by that has no amendment clause, and they're not going to go anywhere with that until they adopt a new constitution. that religion is considered as the first object of legislation, and therefore what religious privileges we enjoy as favors granted, not as inalienable rights. And where they're talking here that religion is considered as the first object of legislation, that's exactly what they did in Connecticut. There was no separation of church and state. The church was the state was the church. Most people don't understand the chemistry for Connecticut, but the church came first, and then the state came second. And that's the way they explain it. And that's the way the colonial charter, the fundamental orders, will also explain it. And therefore, what religious privileges we enjoy as favors granted, and not as inalienable rights. Okay? That's very insulting to understand that the legislature of their state, religion is the first object of it. And being the first object of it, this is what results, that you have religious privileges instead of religious rights that are unalienable. And these favors we receive at the expense of such degrading acknowledgments as are inconsistent with the rights of free men. They're explaining here that they're not happy in their state with the situation between church and state and their situation with religion. The degrading acknowledgments that they're referring to is that they had to fill out and submit special paperwork to verify their tithing and attendance records. They had to maintain records for the state. These degrading acknowledgments were inconsistent with the rights of free men, like the free men of Virginia that didn't have to do this thing anymore, where you have to fill out paperwork in order to conduct your religious activities. Conclusion. The state of Connecticut had no interest in a social arrangement based on any separation of church and state, which is evident by the descriptive language used by the Danbury Association in their address to Jefferson. While the state of Virginia based its social arrangement on the non-state-controlled citizens' inalienable right to their free exercise of their religion, no matter what religion it might be, and not any state-controlled or established religion as it was in Connecticut. To establish religion is for the government to make laws regarding religion, while free exercise of religion is about the absence or the lack of government control or oversight with laws regarding religion.
Yes, I know what really